she was there. And the next moment, she wasn't. On a cold February morning in 2015, 16-year-old Rebecca Becky Watts vanished from her home in East Bristol. One minute she was inside, safe, surrounded by familiar walls. The next she was gone, no signs of a struggle, no forced entry, just missing. And soon the entire city was looking for her. Flyers were plastered on every corner, her name flooding social media. Hashtags, candlelight vigils, desperate pleas from family and friends. Everything just clouded the internet pretty soon. It felt like all of Bristol had suddenly stopped to find Becky. But what happened to her? Did she leave like this at her will? But she had no reason to do that. Or was she kidnapped? But why? And who did it? Or something else happened to her? Becky had always been a quiet, kind-hearted girl. Born on June 3, 1998, she grew up with her father, Darren, after her parents split when she was just 3. Darren's new partner, Angie, became part of Becky's life, bringing along her son from a previous relationship, Nathan Matthews. 12 years older, Nathan wasn't just a stepbrother. He was family. And that's how their lives were going, and in the middle of this, suddenly, the flow was disrupted as Becky disappeared. After that, days passed, but there was no sign of Becky. The search grew desperate. And then, a breakthrough. A small clue, barely noticeable at first, but enough to shift the investigation in a chilling direction. Police weren't looking for a stranger anymore. They weren't looking outside, because something made them doubt that the answer might be found inside her own home. After a thorough investigation, when they finally found her, it wasn't the ending anyone had hoped for. So it brought one burning question: why doing this to her? The answers will be cold and chilling. Could you digest it? Before we proceed to the disturbing reality, remember to subscribe to this channel, as this will keep us motivated. Becky Watts was 16 years old when she vanished without a trace. She was shy and socially anxious, barely spoke to strangers, and avoided situations that required interaction. But on February 19, 2015, she simply wasn't there anymore. Her friends hadn't heard from her. Her phone was off. No note, no explanation. Just a girl vanished into thin air. But Becky wasn't the type to run away. She had spent the night before at a friend's house watching movies and playing games, like any other teenager. That morning she went home, chatted with her stepmother, and then this happened. Her father and stepmother assumed she had gone out for a bit, maybe to see friends, but then the hours stretched on, and still no Becky. And over time it was discovered that her phone, laptop, and tablet were missing as well, but all her clothes and money were still in her room. Now that's suspicious. Why would anyone take only the phone and laptop but not clothes and money? Even if she's kidnapped, why would the kidnapper take the phone and laptop? Unless the kidnapper had any interest in something that's in her devices. That wasn't all. She hadn't told even her boyfriend, Luke Oberhansley, where she was going. In fact, the last message she ever sent was to him the night before she disappeared. So that's extremely fishy. People generally elope with their partners. But in this CSSE, even his partner had no idea about any of this. Becky was the kind of girl who was always on her phone, always checking in, but it's startling that she took her phone with her and yet hadn't sent a single message. That's when the sinking realization hit. This wasn't normal. Becky was missing. The police got involved, and the search began. Flyers went up, news reports started rolling in, and social media flooded with pleas for information. Within days, the entire country was talking about it. News outlets picked up the story, social media exploded with the hashtag #FindBecky, and her family pleaded on the radio, desperate for any clue. People searched everywhere, the streets, the parks, even a pond in St. George's Park, but there was nothing. No sign of her. It was as if she had been erased. But as the search intensified, a chilling thought took hold. What if Becky never left the house at all? Because there was something off about the timeline. Let me explain it to you. Her stepmother had left for a hospital appointment at 11:15 a.m. Becky was home. By the time she returned, Becky was gone. But the thing is, the house was locked all that time, nothing was out of place, and no one had seen her leave. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air, sitting at home. Then a horrifying discovery came in. Someone had been inside the house that morning. Someone Becky knew and trusted. And that someone was hiding a terrible secret. But that didn't make sense. Angie, her stepmother, swore Becky was there when she left the house at 11 a.m., and Becky wasn't alone that morning. There were two other people inside: Nathan Matthews, her stepbrother, and his girlfriend, Shauna Hoare. Nathan wasn't the kind of guy you'd expect to hold down a job. He had fibromyalgia, a painful condition that made everyday life a struggle. Yet despite that, he had once joined the Territorial Army, a weekend warrior of sorts. His relationship with Shauna, that's a whole other mess. He was in his early 20s when they got together, and Shauna was just 14. And somehow no one had a problem with that. And Nathan and Shauna lived together and helped care for Angie, who had multiple sclerosis. That morning they arrived at the house, used the spare key under the recycling bin, and walked in. Music playing upstairs indicated that Becky was there. But then something strange happened. Shauna went outside for a cigarette. She took her daughter to the garden, fed the rabbit, and stayed out there for about 15 minutes. When she came back in, she heard the front door slam. That was it. No goodbye, no footsteps, just a door closing. She assumed it was Becky who had left, but had she? Shauna didn't bother to check, so technically that means no one actually saw Becky leave. They only heard the door. And if Becky didn't walk out of that house, and then where was she? Nathan and Shauna were acting weird, and too weird, and while everyone was desperate for answers, they were dodging interviews like their lives depended on it. Why would they do that? Were they hiding something? If so, what were they hiding? It wasn't like Becky was some distant relative of them. They were family. So why weren't they out there answering questions, helping the search? When Shauna finally sat down for her second interview, detectives brought it up. They had tried speaking to Nathan earlier, just routine questioning, but something felt off. He was hesitant, reluctant, like he didn't want to be involved. When asked if she knew why Shauna played dumb, maybe he had concerns, but if he did, she had no idea. And that's how came the next red flag. Nathan wasn't grieving the way you'd expect. He didn't even pretend to like Becky. He called her self-centered and manipulative, and said she treated his mother and father horribly. But Shauna? She wasn't just unfazed, she almost seemed like she was enjoying herself, laughing and smiling, having a great time while talking about a missing girl. It was disturbing. But the problem was that their stories matched too perfectly. Even the most honest witnesses have slight differences in their accounts. It's human nature. But Nathan and Shauna? Their statements were locked in like a script, word for word. Naturally, anybody could tell that it was too smooth, too rehearsed. As a result, detectives' gut feeling was screaming that something wasn't right, and they were perhaps looking in the right places. So they returned to where it all started, the house where Becky supposedly stormed out. That was the last time anyone had seen her. At least that's what Nathan and Shauna claimed. But as the investigation dug deeper, eventually, they found that there was blood on the doorframe. And on that blood, a fingerprint. The labs were working non-stop, running tests, checking every clue. And then the fingerprint came back. It belonged to Nathan. Now, why was his fingerprint on Becky's blood? We'll go into that part, but now we'd request you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. The police didn't know where Becky was, but now they had a solid lead. Nathan and Shauna were arrested, not for murder, at least not yet. They still held on to hope that Becky was alive, that maybe she was being held somewhere. During questioning, Shauna was a mess. She fumbled, hesitated. Her lies were painfully obvious. But Nathan? Not so much, he kept his cool. But the police had seen this game before. So, they decided to dig deeper. They searched the home. And finally what they found was disgusting. The place was a hoarder's paradise filled with junk, clutter, and chaos. Except for one thing. The bathroom was spotless, and naturally it made no sense. A house buried under piles of mess, but the bathroom was neat and clean. Clearly it signaled a cover-up. Something happened in the bathroom, and the residents cleaned it meticulously. Then they found some shady receipts. On February 20th, the same day Becky was reported missing, someone made purchases like a circular saw, gloves, goggles, and a face mask. But Nathan wasn't fixing up the house, and so what was he doing? Nathan Matthews, her own stepbrother, sat in the interrogation room, spinning a story that barely made sense. After all these, he claimed he didn't mean to kill her. No, That wasn't the plan at all. He just wanted to scare her and teach her a lesson. He thought she was rude to her dad and stepmom, and he thought she needed to be put in her place. So he said he planned to kidnap her, take her somewhere isolated, give her a little reality check, and then let her go. Clearly, this is a stupid, twisted prank. At least that's what he wanted the police to believe. But here's the thing, Becky never came back, and the police kept pushing, and Nathan's story started to crack. He said it was an accident, that during the kidnapping something went wrong. He strangled her, but he didn't mean to. He just messed up. But how do you accidentally strangle someone? And what's even chilling by now was, why did Becky's body end up in pieces? That's when investigators got the tip, the kind that turns a missing persons case into something much darker. Inside a house in Barton Hill, Bristol, police suddenly found what they had been dreading: body parts, hidden, discarded, and heinously dismembered. Becky Watts had been murdered and cut up into pieces. But there was still one question: why? What really happened inside that house? Because the reasoning Nathan gave was not at all believable. This was something else, something worse, and Nathan wasn't alone in this. Shauna Hoare, his girlfriend, wasn't just an innocent bystander. The more the police dug, the more disturbing the truth became. And before you know it, please take a moment and subscribe to this channel, because the climax of this case might nudge you deep, leaving you disturbed. Turns out that Nathan and Shauna had a shared obsession, teenage girls. For months, they had sent each other messages, dark fantasies of abduction and control. This wasn't about teaching Becky a lesson at all. Rather, this was about raw power and desire. And Becky had been their first target. You know, they took charity begins at home too seriously. So what happened in that house, and how deep did their twisted obsession go? The truth was even more horrifying than anyone had imagined. Becky never thought her own family member could plan anything like this involving her. Becky was in her bedroom that morning, probably scrolling through her phone or lost in her thoughts, and completely unaware that a plan had already been set in motion. Somewhere else, a message had been sent. A message so disturbing, so casually evil, it read like a line from a horror film. It read, "Fuck you, bring me back 2 pretty schoolgirls." That was Nathan's text to Shauna. And a few hours later, she responded, laughing about almost knocking a girl out and bringing her home. Because not long after, the fantasy wasn't enough. They wanted more. And the only thing standing between them and their sick desires was an opportunity. Becky, who became that opportunity. So Nathan came prepared. The day it happened, Becky's guardian left for an appointment, probably thinking it was just another ordinary day. Minutes later, Nathan arrived, and he wasn't there for a visit. He wasn't there to check in. He had a plan, and he had the tools to execute it. A full-on kidnap kit, complete with stun guns and handcuffs. He walked into Becky's room, and that's where it all ended for her. The attack was brutal. He suffocated her, stabbed her 15 times, and left her lifeless. And then, life inside that house carried on as if nothing had happened. Family members came and went, unaware that Becky's body was hidden right there, inside Nathan's car. For a whole day they stayed, acted normal, even hung out while her body was stuffed in the boot. But what they did next was even worse. The next day they moved her body back to their place like it was nothing. And in the bathroom, behind closed doors, they dismembered her piece by piece. Then they packed her remains in plastic and covered them with salt. And when they were done, they didn't even keep her in their house, and that would be too risky. Instead, they hid what was left of Becky in a neighbor's shed. What kind of people could do this? From the actions they took and the messages they sent each other, it was clear that Nathan and Shauna were not your average couple. Their relationship wasn't about love, it was about control, violence, and a shared obsession with things most people couldn't even stomach thinking about. Nathan was abusive. He would choke Shauna, dominate her, and hurt her. But then again, some people believed she had a hold on him too. Whatever the truth was, one thing was clear. They fed off each other's darkness, and together they created something monstrous. But was she really just an accomplice? She didn't take part in it actively? Shauna insisted she had no idea what Nathan was planning. No clue he was going to kill Becky that day. No reason to suspect anything. But how could that be? How do you not notice a man bringing stun guns, handcuffs, and a murder plan into your home? She swore she saw nothing. She even said that she didn't look in the car, didn't know what he was carrying. But if that was true, if she really had no idea, why did the messages say otherwise? They found her in pieces, stuffed into bags and hidden away like a secret no one was ever supposed to uncover. Then came the next twist, his girlfriend, Shauna Hoare. At first, everyone thought that Shauna swore she had nothing to do with it. She was innocent, oblivious, just caught up in the mess her boyfriend created. But when forensic teams went through the evidence, they found something chilling. Her DNA was all over the bags that held Becky's remains. Still, Shauna denied everything. And when the prosecution confronted her with text messages between her and Nathan, messages where they casually discussed kidnapping and torturing a teenage girl, she had an excuse ready. She said that it was just sarcasm, but was it? As the trial unfolded, the truth became impossible to deny. 5 weeks of testimony, 3.5 hours of jury deliberation, and then came the verdict day. Nathan Matthews was found guilty of murder. He got a life in prison with minimum of 33 years. And Shauna Hoare was guilty of manslaughter with 17 years behind bars. So it looked like justice was served, or was it? Because prison had its own way of handling monsters like them. Nathan, now trapped behind bars, quickly found out that he wasn't feared. He was hunted. One day, a fellow inmate decided to teach him a lesson with a jug of boiling butter thrown straight at his face. So you see, that's how karma hits you instantly. And Becky's father, when he heard about it, he didn't offer sympathy. Just one cold statement. That's the best birthday present I'll get all day. So what do you think about this case? Why do people like Nathan stoop down to this level? What really drives them, and why are they so compelled to do this that they can't even spare their own family member? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Is it the thrill of the chase and the act of killing that fuels their adrenaline? Perhaps this next case will help you explore that question further. Here, you'll meet someone who kills purely for the thrill, much like the way people enjoy watching horror films. Subscribe to the channel for more. See you soon.